I'm going to
Okay.
try and record it too, Phil.
Okay, awesome. I can hear it's recording.
Just
Cool. So Gemma, you're heading into the second half of the season. How do you kind of assess the first half of the season so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a tough one. I think like the realities of the league set in pretty early. We realized that it was going to be tough and it was going to be a challenge, but we also kind of committed to basically the way we wanted to play and the way we wanted to develop players. And I think we've stuck to that, even though it's probably cost us goals and leaking soft stuff that we probably, if we went a bit more defensive or a bit more risk adverse, that we could maybe avoided. But I think for the most part, if I think of this season in the bigger picture, I think it's been the right thing. I think we're developing the way we want to play. I think the girls are starting to kind of, they've really bought into it, and they're really, I think their motivation is still being driven through that. They're seeing the successes within the games, even if they're not quite getting the results. So I think from that point of view, like I feel like we're in a better space now than we were when we started, even though people look at it and we started with a draw. I think from the way we're playing, it's starting to feel like there is progress coming. It's just still the inconsistencies of not really being able to kind of put it all together, especially not for 90 minutes.
Yeah, and so what is kind of the target for the second half of the season? Is it just to get one win? Is it to get a few of them? Is it to get, is it performance based? Like, yeah, do you have a target for the second half?
Yeah, so we're trying, to be honest, like we're actually, for the girls and for their mentality, we're actually trying to stay away from like the specific outcome of the game, because I think in the first half of the season, on the reflection, that's been where we've lost them a little bit. Like the Sydney game, one of our targets was like to keep them without a goal for as long as we could, and the moment that went out the window, the whole thing went out the window. So I think we've really tried to make sure that we can, as much as we can, focus on the actual wins within the game and how we're playing and our performances, because we can track improvement in that. So, and even within that, in our possession, we track how many regains we get in a game, and then how many times we're regaining and being able to pass and complete passes 5 times or more, to try and work out, okay, we're turning over possession and we're now keeping the ball, or we're controlling the game a little bit more, rather than to begin with in the early stages of the season, we'd win the ball, give it away, win the ball, give it away, win the ball, give it away. So we were working really hard out of possession, but we were never really taking the pressure off or securing it to give ourselves some relief. And the City game, we did that probably the best we've done from the stats. And then the Brisbane game, we lost that a little bit when we went up and panic station started to set in a little bit. So yeah, it's not going to be the focus on let's win 1 game or let's win 2 games. We're actually focusing on the way we want to play and being able to execute that and look across our stats and our games and make sure we're getting a trajectory of improvement through the games. And if we're not, why? And then being able to address that from there. I think if we do that, the outcome of the game should come, but we're trying not to fully focus on the score or the win or the loss or the draw, because I think from our first half of the season, that's where we've struggled in the motivation, when we see a dip with the girls, when they're just constantly thinking about, okay, another loss, okay, another 4 goals, another loss again. It's really hard to get them to bounce back up, whereas in the last, say, probably 2 to 3 weeks, when we've started refocusing the way we're playing the game and the way we're analyzing the game or targeting the game, there's actually been a lot more engagement, and the motivation, the drive has kept pushing through. And I think that's really important for how we want to play.
Yeah, and I just wanted to ask you, or talk to you about Alyssa. Obviously, it was one of the moments of the season so far, her goal celebration, which was great. And I guess part of her story was the fact that she originally wasn't going to be in the squad. What were the reservations that you had kind of initially, and how has she kind of, I guess, changed your mind, because she's been a key player now, in the team, which is pretty crazy as well.
Yeah, massively. I find this one really interesting, to be honest, because actually the reason that she wasn't originally picked was because she still hadn't made her mind up if she wanted to go to the States or not. And you can't take a scholarship in college for the States if you have a professional contract. So we couldn't sign her, or we couldn't look to sign her, and we had conversations about it, but she was still not 100% sure, and I think for somebody that age, like we knew that other pro offers or the Phoenix next year would still be on the table, but for her decision around her education and what she was doing in the future, like we didn't want to put pressure on to put a contract in front of her, and offer her something when she wasn't 100% decided. And it wasn't until we spoke to her to be like, okay, well, based on kind of the decisions of where you're at with college and not so sure with what you want to do yet, like we're not going to offer you a contract right now. And then that was when like she spoke to us on reflection like a couple of days later, and had spoken to her family and stuff, and she was like really kind of adamant that she wanted to go down the pro route, and not the college route. But we have to be like really careful in those moments, because like this is like we can't like put pressure on them when it comes to like those decisions for their future. Like that's their education, that's their like career, and when you're 17-18 years old, those are like really quite important decisions. So yeah, we kind of came at it from a point of view of, okay, well, let's not offer a contract now, and give her another year to kind of make a decision. She was talking about having a gap year to decide, and focus on the 20s, and then decide whether she was going to go to college or not. So to be honest, that's one of the main reasons why we didn't initially straight off the bat offer her a contract. We didn't really want to force her hand, and kind of give her that opportunity to make the decision with her family and herself about what she wanted for her future. When she came back to us, obviously by that point we'd filled like the original 11 spots, but she said that she really wanted to go down the pro route. So then we even started to look at other teams for her, because when she'd made that decision, we were like, okay, we 100% support this. Let's try and get you one of the kind of free Kiwi spots in one of the other teams. And then we were lucky enough to be able to have those scholarship players be Kiwi because of the age limitation on the Australians we had. And as soon as we had the opportunity, we offered it to her straight away.
So did you actually approach other clubs? Like, did any of them show any interest in signing her, or did they say no, or what?
No, yeah, not really. I think like it's hard. Like we tried to kind of talk to coaches, but she's quite unknown. And there were some clubs as well that just weren't really that interested in taking on a Kiwi player, even if it was a free spot. It was also really like towards that people had quite a solidified team by that point. So we were hoping that she would be able to kind of get picked up on the last spots for people. But to be honest, it was like within like a week or so, and when we had that turnaround of the timeframes and stuff, and we picked her up as soon as we could.
Yeah, no, just a final one before I pass on. What have you made of the impact she's had, and the fact that she's now got her first goal? What are you hoping that kind of does for her game as well?
Yeah, I mean, she's been a huge impact to us, and I think we kind of like showed our backing with her as well, from the fact that obviously she came in obviously as a scholarship player, but we put her straight in the squad straight away because her preseason and her preseason games have been really good. And then the moment, I think 2 games or something, when she showed like good impact coming off the bench, then we decided to try her from the start, and she's grown into the games ever since. And she's definitely she brings something different to the team that we don't necessarily have. And it's that point of difference that really makes her that kind of attacking threat. And I think for her scoring, obviously that's the thing she's been missing a little bit, from the fact that normally she brings other players into the game and sometimes doesn't make the decision to take it herself or have the shot. Whereas I think that goal just like hopefully it's like that positive reinforcement of making those decisions to sometimes back yourself, and kind of take on the opportunity to shoot in those moments. So hopefully it's kind of reinforce that and giving her the courage that if she's in and around the box and gets a little bit of room, then she should be thinking about kind of shooting and thinking about taking those opportunities. And now she kind of hopefully will have the belief that that she'll be able to do it on those games. So
there's a great gif of Graham Arnold saying you didn't want him when one of like the other team's former players scored against them. I'm just picturing you doing the same when Alyssa gets the winning goal for a team that they didn't want to.
Oh yeah, exactly.
No, that's cool. Thanks for.
Thanks, mate.
Gemma, can I jump in here? You mentioned about not wanting to focus on the result. How challenging has that been this week, given the fact that the team was up 2-0 and you could tell at the end of the game they were so gutted that they let their one squander? It looked like a really different reaction to other losses. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's definitely fair to say. It was like I'm not gonna lie, that whole game was like a really interesting experience. And I remember speaking on this call prior to the game, saying that when we go 0-0 in games and the game draws out, we kind of build in confidence. So I thought that if we went up a goal, that was going to increase our confidence even more. And I think it did until they got one back. And I think when we went 2-1, it felt like panic stations almost started to creep in, and we got really frantic, and we let them dictate the game, and it all of a sudden didn't feel like we were still winning the game. And even I spoke to it after the game, in the changing room at halftime, it felt like there was a lot of fear. People were almost really scared about being in the situation that we were 2-1 up. I think normally at halftime we don't have anything to lose and we're focusing on us, whereas it was okay, all of a sudden there's a game to lose. There are points on the line. There are things that are worth almost battling for. But at the same time, I think that shifted the focus. It took it away from what we were trying to achieve in that game, and it went more towards the, oh my God, we're 2-1 up and we're winning, and we can win this game, and almost that kind of panic station set in a little bit, which I think detracted from what the girls should have been focusing on and what we were trying to achieve within the game. And then the moment they came out and scored within whatever 30 seconds to a minute, absolutely shifted that game. And again, I think that one of the things I talked to them about before coming out for that second half was just have a solid 10 minutes and take the sting out of them, because they're going to come out and come straight at you, and then they score within 30 seconds to a minute. So that obviously didn't work very well. So yeah, I think not focusing on the result is still something that it's hard to do, but I think that game even showed how purposeful it was, because as much as they haven't been in that situation where they've been 2-0 up and winning before, they also started to focus too much on it. And I think it kind of made them panic. I think we moved away from our game plan. We started to play ourselves into trouble. We started to play frantically. We turned over so much possession. And I think it caused us problems. To be fair, they were feeling really gutted that evening. The next day, when we went over the game, and we kind of had honest conversations about it and about why they were so gutted and things like that, when they haven't been as gutted about losing a game 5-0, but they were gutted about kind of losing 3-2 when we probably could have won it. I think once we addressed that and had a bit of an open conversation about it, and then looked towards Adelaide, the mood in camp has been good since. I feel like they are bouncing back quicker than I maybe thought they would have.
The final question from me is, how does a coach calm?
Yeah, I mean, I'd really love to know. We're trying, because actually this game against Adelaide, so they live in chaos. They love it. They how they press, their counter press, their kind of defensive transition, their counter-attacking ability, that. I think they actually are a team that thrive in the chaos. So they're going to want to put us under the pump. They're going to want to press us and force us to turn over possession high. They've scored goals off it in their previous games. So yeah, we've done sessions on trying to kind of figure out how to live within that panic and how to not get in that space of letting them dictate the game, and weighing up that risk versus reward of when we overplay and kind of play into a trap, rather than sometimes realizing that shifting play slightly or playing slightly into a higher platform and is the right moments. And you know what? Sometimes just clearing the ball isn't a bad idea at times. So we're getting there, and there's decision making, and they're learning from it. But I think this game has the ability to turn into a game of chaos, to be honest. So yeah, let's see how we roll with it.
Thank you, Gemma. Now, everyone, I have to apologise. I have to depart. I'm going to leave my recorder rolling. BV, if the recording doesn't come through, let me know and I'm happy to distribute for you. Thanks again, Gemma. Thanks, everybody. Sorry to be rude.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you, Nige.
Hey, Gemma, I just wondered on that subject you were talking about coaching calmness, like how do you approach it as a coach? Like you conceded 3 goals, but then by the same token, for the first time this season, you'd scored more than 1. Like I'm wondering how you strike the right tone between shouting and hugging. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, like we're still figuring it out. I'm not gonna lie. Like I'm not gonna sit here and bullshit and say we've got this massive, like we've got it figured out and we've got the right chemistry about it. There's this balance of like we want to encourage the girls to play, but then there's also this balance of like there's times where we overplay and we get ourselves in trouble and like that decision making, and then because of that our calmness shifts. Like sometimes we're too calm in the moment when we need to like move the ball a little bit quicker or react a little bit more quickly, and then sometimes we go too far down the other end and we panic and start to get chaotic. And I think there's this really hard balance that we're trying to strike, because the way we defend is with an intensity that can be chaotic, because we like to smother teams. We like to make it really difficult. We like to counter press and battle for the second ball, the third ball, and constantly almost be at them all the time in the defending moment for any 50-50 duels or anything that some teams might give up on. We throw 2 or 3 players at it and really try and battle for it. So when we defend with that intensity and that almost chaos, it's then being able to shift into the possession of now you have the ball, you can dictate, and now you have the ball, you can settle things down, and this is where you can control the game. And I think that's why we fade in games, because we don't strike that balance well. We defend at 100 miles an hour and then we try and play at 100 miles an hour, and then we struggle for an in between. So it is definitely trying to figure out that balance, and we've showed the girls footage, we've gone through it in trainings. We've like, even this week, we've got the opposition to defend like almost man for man and smother and be really chaotic to try and like prepare to live in that and understand what it's going to feel like, so that you're not just putting it straight in the game. And then if Adelaide put us under less pressure than that, I think that'll hopefully be good for us, because it'll give us a little bit more space. We'll be able to settle a little bit more, but also hopefully we've prepared for living in the chaos and what that's going to feel like, and trying to find those moments of calming the game down and being able to take those times to circulate possession a little bit more, take a little bit more time on certain things, without being able to take the intensity away from how we want to defend as well. It's a learning curve. We're figuring it out.
Yeah, I can see you guys are kind of up and down, and there's moments where you're like, this is great, and then it's not. And then
yeah,
I guess you mentioned that having a calming influence and when to press the right button and when to go hard and when to just take the sting out of it was the phrase you used. I just wondered, I know there's a lot of strings attached with you guys, but is there any scope to bring anyone in at this point, short term wise?
To be honest, like I'd love to know. It's this real, like, I'm not gonna lie, it's this real gray area that we've got as a team, and it's almost like we're operating under different rules and regulations to other teams. So we're not quite sure, like, because obviously at the moment we don't know how long Kelly's going to be out for. She's still got symptoms, so she's not going to be cleared anytime soon, I don't think. So then it's like, okay, well, can we get injury cover? Does that injury cover need to be a Kiwi? Like, what does that look like? So yeah, we're starting to ask those questions, but to be perfectly honest, it's not quite as black and white as it is for everyone else. And I think that's the problem we're having. Whereas like other teams are bringing in short-term injury cover, bringing in guest players and everything under the sun. And we keep seeing all these announcements and we're like, well, it'd be great to, like, if we had access to this sort of stuff, might be able to really help at the moment. Whereas like, to be completely honest, we're being really stretched at the moment. Like Kelly being out, Mac is still very much a 50-50 right now. And then we've also got probably another 2 players on limited minutes. Like when you get to that space for us, we've got a squad of 20. So now you're talking 4 or 5 players that are that are in a case of being affected, like we're getting down to the bones of what we've got, really.
So by yourself putting the boots on, are you going to chase that up with the APL and ask what?
Yeah. So we're doing things from our end to start to ask the questions from the APL, but we're definitely getting a response of like that we're this grey area of like people have put certain regulations on us and trying to figure out what that means, and can we bring these people in or can we not? And so we're starting to really push and ask those questions, but it's definitely not as easy as every other team, and I think sometimes that's what's forgotten about. And I think as much as these immediate regulations were put on us at the beginning, I don't think there was thought put into, okay, what does it mean for the rest of it? Can they have guest players? Do the guest players have to be Australian? Can they be visa players if they're guest players? Do we even get access to guest players? Like if we've got injury cover, does it have to be a direct replacement of a nationality, or can we replace with a visa player, or does it have to just be an Australian player? These are all things that I don't think have been thought through, to be perfectly honest.
Thanks, Gemma.
Thanks, mate.
Ruben and Raoul, do you guys want to go?
Yeah, sweet. I'll go. Hi, Gemma. It's Ruben here from News 6ZP in Auckland. I guess just on there, I mean, we're at the halfway point of the season and the clarity is still not there. How frustrating is that when you'd hope that had been ironed out? I mean, obviously scenarios happen, things change, things very fluid, as we know in a lot of scenarios, but from your point, you want everything at your disposal as possible. So how tough is that when it's just another hurdle to try to jump over?
Yeah, it is. It's really tough. And I think that's that. Like, yeah, to be honest, I think frustrations are creeping in a little bit. I think as well, I take certain ownership as well in terms of like maybe should have been forwards thinking to already ask these questions prior to and go through worst case scenario. But I think team being put together so last minute, trying to kind of chase our tails already and put together the team and prepare. Yeah, it's kind of been more of a reaction rather than being proactive. So like I take it on the chin as well in terms of like should have kind of forward thought and asked these questions earlier. But I think it is a bit frustrating that we don't necessarily have the clarity on what we can and can't do. And I don't think and I think they're struggling because it's not so crystal clear or black and white or already laid out for us. The same as it is for everyone else. So yeah, I think we will get some guidance on it. I'm hoping this week, and to let us know kind of what that's going to look like for us. But at the moment, yeah, I think it's one of the things in hindsight that I would do differently.
Excellent. And just finally from me, you talk about things not being result based for how you're trying to get the team hitting their targets week to week. But after what you saw last week, how does that change sort of what that message is ahead of the Adelaide game?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. Like I think to me, like as much as we can turn around and say like we're not super results based, like the girls still see it. They still they still understand if they've won, lost, whether they could have won a game, drawn a game, if they've kind of let things slip through their hands. So they're very aware and they feel it, and we do address it. So I think for me, like even the game that we just had, I think the experience of being kind of like 2-1 up and being under the pump and feeling like it almost felt like, and it's hard to say, but it almost felt like there was that expectation that it was going to slip through our hands. And I think like that's hard for me to admit as a coach, like to be honest, but I think as a group, like we have to find that kind of confidence and belief to know that in those games, like we can compete and we can still get a result out of it. So even though we're not necessarily focused on the win-loss, I think it's just that in experience and belief and confidence that we've now been in it, and the worst thing that could happen to us happened to us, and we didn't even get a single point out of it, and now it's that kind of experience and growth and learning opportunity that hopefully when we're in it again, like we've experienced it, it's not unusual to us, it's not so scary to us anymore, and hopefully they'll like have a lot more belief and confidence in the fact that they could finish off a game. Yeah, that's kind of the thing that we've been trying to address this week and work through.
Awesome. Thanks, Jim. All the best this weekend.
Thank you.
Hey Gemma, just I know you've been going for a while. Just a couple.
That's all right.
Something I'm writing for this weekend. You're 12 weeks into an 18-week tour, effectively. You know, how many different football teams are there in the world, and you've probably got the most unique set of circumstances. I was wondering, you know, what bits of it have sort of been what you expected, and what's probably been the biggest thing that's happened that you didn't expect?
I think one of the biggest things that we didn't really expect was how bad the COVID situation over here was going to get. And I remember, you know, I think I even spoke to you about it, and we were talking about the fact that we didn't want this to turn into an 18-week camp because it just wasn't sustainable. But because of the nature of how bad like COVID's got, and it's kind of really pulled away any sort of balance that they've been able to have, because they don't have that freedom as much. Like they have to play everything with risk when they go out, and they don't go into kind of like, they can't go to the movies or do any of these things that they get that sort of relief and balance with outside of football. So they're pretty much here, they're in one environment, they're with each other all the time. And then obviously we're training, we're going through footage, we have games. Like, so it's definitely like it's 100% turning into everything that we were trying to avoid in terms of like that 18-month camp. But then at the same time, we're also trying to think of the players' like well-being from a COVID situation as well, and like trying to be as high risk as we can to make sure that none of the girls are kind of going to get COVID, because if they do, for us, that's gonna really kind of kick us in the teeth as well. So yeah, I think that's been one of the biggest things that I didn't expect. I thought the COVID situation was going to get better. That's my naivety. But yeah, having to deal with that's been really hard. And then I think over the Christmas period, what was already a hard time for the girls mentally is now almost being extended, because you know there's very little balance, there's not much relief, and they love what they do, but I also think the reality is set in around how hard this actually is. Yeah, that's me being pretty like transparent, to be honest. There's definitely, it's tough. It's tough for the people that are here, and I think they're doing, and I think that's what some people don't see, and that's why I think even the game that we just played and losing that game, that was gutting for the girls. But I also think like the way they're competing, the way they're still able to motivate themselves and like have like a good performance and be able to compete with these teams is actually goes beyond the football side of it. Like their resilience is being tested every week, and they're doing really well, but it 100% is taking a toll.
I mean, that's sort of why I wanted to do this story this weekend. One thing you mentioned sort of right before the start of the season was that you guys appointed you a player welfare officer.
Yeah.
Who I think we've sort of seen in some of the picks. Can you sort of just tell us a bit about, you know, who exactly, you know, she is, and, you know, what sort of role she has to play in helping players with that sort of balance issue, and I guess the other sort of support staff they have in that sort of, I guess, you know, off field and sports psychology sort of area?
Yeah. So the lady that we appointed, her name's Nikki, and she is a businesswoman, and she works on kind of like mostly around like leadership and public speaking, and like she was really good in that working kind of like with female leaders. So it ended up, she's been around football a lot, and used to be a goalkeeper back in her day and everything. So she kind of like knows the football aspect, knows the football landscape, and was quite a good fit for this team. I think the hardest challenge, like to be perfectly honest, again for her, has been like coming in, and by the time she came in, we were already kind of in the middle of preseason, and having to kind of like start these relationships with these players and really really quickly and accelerate it, because ultimately these are still young girls, and we can put somebody in place, but we can't make them speak to her. We can't, and that was the real challenge for us in the early days. We had to kind of, and Nikki's done amazing, because you'll see her at all our games. Like she comes to training, she's like around as much as she can to try and kind of create these relationships. She's actually worked with Lily a lot. So people talk about how Lily's done really well being a captain. She's lent on Nikki so much when it comes to kind of leadership, and how to lead, how to deal with situations on the field when they're however many goals down, how to get the girls to bounce back when they're really struggling. So she's worked a lot with Nikki, which I think we've seen the impact of, because Lily's turning into actually a really good leader and a really good fit for the team. So yeah, she's been really like helpful as well, especially in the early days, because she's a Wollongong local as well. So she helped the girls in terms of understanding the area. It was almost like she gave them a good guide to like places to go, things to do, and she really helped with that balance when we didn't have the situation of COVID, because she was constantly like getting the girls out there and seeing new things and doing different things that took them away from football. Whereas now with COVID, it's becoming a lot harder. And now I think we're drawing more on that sports psychology and that mental health and well-being side. And through the PFA, the girls have access to somebody local to Wollongong. His name's David, and he's working a lot with our players at the moment as well, because now we're actually, to be honest, getting more down the side of that mental health and well-being, because we don't have that balance anymore. To be perfectly honest, like as well, like there's still like a lot that's on like myself and Nat, because we have that relationship with the girls and we've known them for years. So that's been one of the balancing acts of like we're so busy with it, we have so much on, but at the same time, like we've known these players for years. So the first person they end up coming and speaking to is one of us when they're struggling. And sometimes that means, you know what, we're not coaching, or we're not going through the clips. So I'm actually spending an hour going for a walk with a player and just chatting to them and like kind of making sure they're doing okay, and kind of keeping them grounded in certain moments when they're struggling. And that's probably different to most head coach roles or most coaching roles within this group. But at the moment, it's like you said, this different dynamic to what anyone has had to experience, which has meant we've adjusted as well to how we do things. So if that means we go for a walk with a player and we chat to them and we make sure that we're doing okay, that's probably what's going to get them through the next game and get them feeling in a good space, rather than us going through the extra clips or putting on an extra session, or studying Adelaide even more. It's actually sometimes just making sure the players are in a good headspace, and they're happy and healthy and ready to compete. And that's definitely been a really big shift here, to be honest.
Yeah, and just lastly, you've got some players there who haven't actually even taken the field. Obviously, sort of reserve goalkeeper perhaps to be expected, but there are a couple of outfielders who don't even have the sort of football to look forward to. I mean, just on those players, sort of talking Charlotte, Kushler, how are they sort of coping with it all? And am I right in understanding that only one player doesn't live in the sort of university accommodation? And whereabouts are all the coaches sort of based? Are you all based there as well?
No, we're based in Wollongong, pretty much. Like 5 minutes around the corner, just in a different set of apartments, to try and keep a little bit of separation.
No, I guess just on those players, those are the players who might, I mean, they're all doing it tough, but those players don't actually have the football part at the moment either.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, like it's really tough. Like, and for those players, it is like they are doing it tough. We try and spend like quite a lot of time with them, to be honest. Like, I actually had Tony Reddings actually spoke to me before coming away to do this, and he told me he was like, players like number 15 to 20 are going to end up being like your most important players, from a point of view of like, if the group is still working well, if the training is still good, like, because the players kind of 1 to 12 and 13, they're going to get the attention, they're going to be playing, they're going to be getting what they need, but these are the players that are going to kind of need the extras and going to need actually more support from you, or are going to need more chats with you or more training, or because they're the ones that aren't necessarily getting that attention from the space of actually playing. And that's I was probably really lucky to get that advice. So yeah, it's been tough for them, but we kind of have regular meetings with them. We do extras with them. We do individual trainings with them to try and really, so they almost like have a plan of what they're working on and what they're trying to achieve. And we also, like, we will give opportunities. And to be honest, like, Hannah is an example of somebody that kind of worked really well with us through that individual space, was really improving on the stuff we asked her to. So then we started to kind of give her that opportunity within games. We kind of have to like really find that balance between, this is still professional football, and as much as we're probably more towards the development end, it's still a professional team, and then like learning and building that resilience within this is actually really important. And part of that is when you don't get selected constantly, and when you're not getting on the field, and like how you still kind of support the team, how you still give 100% to the team, but also how you keep yourself engaged and still feeling like confident and good in that space as well. And yeah, they're definitely not doing it easy. We're just trying to support them as much as we can along the way, and give them the extras and the extra training and the extra development opportunities to try and really get them to a space where they can take the field and they can get those opportunities. And my whole goal has been that even if they never take the field, like, are they going to leave this environment a better player than when they came in, or are they going to have developed at all, or have we held them back? So that's the space we want to live in, is like every single player in this group walks away from this environment better than when they came in, even if they didn't get to take the field. But obviously our goal is to hopefully get them to a situation where they're going to be able to take the field.
No, cool. Thank you very much for going into so much detail as well.
No, that's all right. Not a problem, mate.
Any final questions, guys? No.
Thank you, Brendan.
Thanks a lot, Gemma. That's much appreciated. Apologies for the start, guys.
All good, mate.
I feel for your mobile data.